Alright, so it's definitely 100% death about 3 feet that way and about 8 feet that way. So it feels kind of weird being here right now. But it's I had to get into these life-threatening cliffs to get away from mule deer. I'm hoping the mule deer aren't going to come here. I can't see them doing it, but you never know. And I made a big indent in the hard ground, dug it out, and I put my 2 salt blocks in there. I've got a couple different flavors, and it's right at the head of a sheep trail. So we'll leave it here. I'm going to set up my cameras up here, my motion cameras, and should be pretty exciting to see what comes. It'll be very exciting. So we'll see what happens here in the next, I think I'm going to leave this up to 3 weeks, maybe a month, because I don't see fresh sign here, but there will be sheep here. They're going to find this. As soon as they find this, that's all she wrote. They'll never not come here again. So, as long as I get out of here alive, and we'll be able to check some footage in maybe 3 weeks or a month. It's June 9th right now. Here we go. More sweat, but it's going to pay off. Oh, I wouldn't want to fall down there. Woo! I'm soaked and done like dinner. Remember the movie Groundhog Day? You know, dude woke up every single day and did the exact same thing. That movie. So that's what it feels like right now, working on this barn in the rain. Groundhog Day. Haven't checked my email today. Hopefully we hear from Edgar soon. I can't wait to hear from him actually, but I don't want to bug him. It's funny, you want to make yourself laugh when you're grumpy, working by yourself. I'm on the top of the stupid ladder, overextending myself, can't reach the last 4-inch spike I'm trying to drive into this piece of wood. And I had to use my left hand, and I'm right-handed, although I do shoot left-handed because I'm left-eye dominant. You want to make yourself laugh, swing a framing hammer as hard as you can with the wrong hand from the top of the ladder. That was pretty comical. Okay, one of those things where you had to have been there, all right? But anyway, let's get on with this. More voices shall be heard right now. This is titled Middle Fork Experience. Hey Steve, I want to start by saying thank you for all you do with your channel. I appreciate your no-nonsense and cut the BS attitude. The world could use a lot more like you. Thanks for the comments. The name is Tom Horseman. Feel free to use it. I'm originally from northern Minnesota and literally grew up in the woods. We live on a major highway cutting through our 180 acres of property, so outdoorsying is nothing new to me. Logging, hunting, and fishing my whole life, I never thought there was anything in the woods outside of the known.
My story takes place in the early 2000s on the middle fork of the Snoqualmie River just north of I-90 in Washington. I lived in Seattle, and our friends and I would go camp on the river almost every weekend. The scenery and wildlife out there never let us down. I was not a believer in Bigfoot or anything that I felt science couldn't explain at the time, but soon my mind would be changed for me. One trip, my friends said they wanted to visit a spot that I'd never been to. It was a 2,500 foot elevation gain off of the river and sounded like a challenge, so I agreed to go. I never packed a huge pack with my own tent. I had overpacked a huge pack with my own tent, thermarest mattress, sleeping bag, kitchen kit, machete, etc. About 20 minutes into the hike, we went from a trail that wasn't marked, but my friends said they knew where it was going, to a scramble/climb up the edge of the trees on a near vertical rock face. I was struggling to keep upright and not fall backwards from my giant pack. Grabbing onto any roots or rocks I could find was the only way I made it. We were supposed to be meeting up with a couple of friends who had come up earlier that morning. We finally got to where we were going to camp, and as the afternoon light was turning amber, we came around the arc up the tree line to a tiny flat space at the top of the near vertical wall we had been climbing next to. The view was absolutely beautiful, the fingers of the Cascades going down the bends in a river as it headed towards sunset was breathtaking. Only one of the two friends was up there and we arrived. The other hadn't felt like coming, and he said, "Man, I'm glad you guys made it. I was worried I was going to have to stay up here by myself tonight." We laughed and started to unpack when I said, "Where am I supposed to put my tent?" There was one tent set up already and only room for one other. I'd carried all that up for nothing. Anyway, after kicking myself for that, we started a small fire and sat with our feet dangling over the face with the tops of the Douglas firs about 80 feet below. Wow, that must have been a wicked view, man. The sun had set and our west-facing camp with thick trees about 10 feet behind us was a crazy glow from the fire. The guy who had been there first had a CD player and portable speakers and was playing music over it while we cooked. I had brought up a bottle of whiskey with me in my giant pack and asked if anyone liked some. The guy raised his hand immediately and said, "Right here, I'll take some." I wasn't aware of it, but he never drank. Uh-oh, I want to be drunk on the edge of a cliff. I found this out later on. We were all laughing and talking while we were eating dinner. I was sitting on the rock with the fire just to my right. The tree line was about 20 feet further right and arced incredibly quickly, following the sheer face we had our feet dangling over. Arched incredibly quickly. I really don't know how to describe it, but the closest I can is a rumble, so low in tone but so loud in volume that I thought it was an earthquake erupted from the tree line just outside of the firelight. I literally felt the rock shaking beneath my butt. I've heard a lot of sounds and absolutely nothing is close. It was almost infrasound, like an elephant can make. Anyway, all the tension was on that spot, and we jumped up and waved our arms and screamed and banged on pots and pans, trying to alert this thing that people are here and to go away, like you would with a bear. I grabbed the Surefire flashlight and my machete, no firearms on this trip sadly, and walked towards the spot where the sound seemed to come from. Nothing. Scoured the whole area for about 5 minutes and nothing. Now I was in no way thinking about Sasquatch this time. The guy that never drank started hitting the bottle really hard. One of my other friends said he should take it easy, but he said he had to calm his nerves. He said, "When I was waiting for you guys to get up here, I kept feeling like I was being watched." I said, "That bear was just interested in our food. He'll be long gone after that motion." After about a few more minutes, we all calmed down and were sitting by the fire. The mood had changed with our digestion, as it often does, and we were all sitting in quiet contemplation, listening to the crackling fire, and I believe it was the Grateful Dead on the little stereo, when a boulder, not a rock, a boulder, bigger than I could hope to lift with my 6'3", 250-pound body, came flying out of the tree line about where the growl had come from. The boulder was about 1.5 feet by a foot and just splashed out of the trees about 12 foot high, then sailed out in front of us silently until it lost momentum and fell the 200 feet straight down the rock face we were sitting on. Crash. It landed down through the Douglas fir tops and clattered along the face. Once again, we jumped up and made as much noise as possible, and once again I ran to the tree line with my light to see who was messing with us. Still not sure what I was experiencing. I wanted to believe it was someone playing a joke. Then the more I thought about it, the noise, the size of that boulder, the height it came out of the trees at, who the heck could do that? Not long afterwards, the poor guy got ill from the whiskey and came back to say he was hitting the sack. We all said goodnight, and he went to his tent, and that was around a little shrub from the fire just this side of the tree line. The other tent, the one I was staying in, was just past his and in the tree line. What's going on? Why can't I read this smoothly? There would be 2 to a tent due to lack of room. Only about 10 minutes had passed when I heard him snoring soundly in his tent. My other 2 friends had seemed to forget about everything that happened and were laughing and talking about making s'mores. I told them I was going to pass. In fact, I was going to hit the sack myself. That was immediately met with, "No, you can't leave us alone out there." I laughed and said, "I'd be right over there in the tent." My one friend said, "Oh, you worried about him, huh?" I told him I was concerned and not splitting up was probably the best thing. I walked back to where I had looked into the woods and what made the sound and through the boulder, and again nothing. So I went to my tent and I climbed in and zipped up the fly. My machete was useless for inside the tent, so I pulled out my SOG Seal Pup fixed blade knife and laid it on my chest, laying on top of my sleeping bag. My feet were toward the area that the activity had been, and by my head was in the tree line. Oh my God, I'm butchering this, aren't I? I tried to still myself and listen intently for any movement in the woods. The sounds of s'more making took over the crackle of the fire, and once again laughter and stories filled the air. Then out of the corner of my ear, I heard a small click in the woods. Okay, noted. Then a full 2 minutes later, and just a bit further, shuffle. Still listening, nothing else. Then a bit further up the tree line, a rustle. A nocturnal squirrel, a mouse in the leaf litter. Still great times being had with the s'mores by the fire. Pop. A little closer to the tent, but still very soft noises. This thing is skirting us, is trying to get behind us. No way. If the tent starts to dip in towards me at all, I'm going to stab this thing. Then, about 20 feet behind my head, the sound of something pushing down a tree. 1, 2, and on the third, it came down and broke a huge root doing so. My heart was pounding in my ears. I strained to hear anything running towards or away from me. The guys at the fire were doing the usual yelling and clamoring, followed by turning the music off and footsteps approaching the tent. "Tom, it's me, man. Don't stab me," was my friend's concerned greeting. He knew me well enough, LOL. My friend came in the tent and excitedly asked me if I had heard that. I put my fingers to my lips and said, "It's still right here." He made me promise to let him get to sleep before I did. He said he would never be able to get to sleep if I did it first, LOL. I said, "All right," and laid awake until dawn. No other sounds the rest of the night. The next morning we had breakfast, and I said I wanted to go check out where the tree had been pushed over. The look on the poor hungover guy's face. Tree? Pushed over? So he recounted the story of after he passed out, so he was up to speed. He then told us about how when he started to play his music is when he felt like he was being watched and something wanted him to leave. No doubt in my mind that was the message being sent to us all that night. We walked over and quickly found the tree that had been pushed over, about 16 inches around and broken off years before at about 15 feet. The tree was dead and the bark was loose but intact, so no claws or horns had been on that tree or the bark would have shed off of it. It was about 30 degrees to the ground and the root had been broken, making that loud cracking noise about 6 inches across. No leaf litter in the root well, so it was definitely the tree had been pushed down. I think it was the music echoing through the river valley that had it that had drawn its attention to us. Definitely was letting us know we were intruding on its space. I went back to that spot another time with no other encounter. I had to go back to that exact spot. I couldn't be scared out of the mountains I love forever. I wouldn't let that happen to me. Over the next few years, I continued to frequent the river and camp with plenty of game encounters, but nothing that was out of the usual. Thanks for hearing me out. Sorry this turned into a book, LOL. Merry Christmas to you and your family. This is a while ago, I guess. It's okay, man. Sorry if I butchered it too much. I know what's going on with this read, you guys, and it is because I turned the screen brightness down last night. So I gotta fix that, and then I will get back to it. Oh. All right, here we go. Listen to this one. Mark this as red. Got the screen brighter. Hopefully I'll be smoother in this one. Important share. This is titled A Painting of My First Encounter. Steve, I'm being helped greatly by your courage to create such a bold channel for us and the many stories from the people's around table. I wrote you over a year ago and told you about my first encounter with the Sasquatch, and you read it on your channel. You do what you say you're going to do. I like your rugged, honest approach and view. Not to mention you're an awesome photographer, one of my passions. I'm an artist and photographer also, and for the most part, have lived in the country except for the necessary stint I had to do in the Bay Area regarding my careers. One in criminal justice and the other in technology. I'm going to repeat my first encounter again so it matches my piece of art that I've included here. All right. It was a sunny day in '53 on my family's ranch outside of Red Bluff, California. My little brother and I were walking across the Reeds Creek Bridge. We're going to go play fort. My brother ran over to the left side of the bridge and he was looking over the rail. I was on the right side and heard a rustling of bushes. I turned my head to look, and there in the creek bed below was a juvenile male. Excuse me, he was lean, about 6 feet tall, and had dark brown hair that was about 2 inches long. No hair on his dark face or hands. He had no sagittal crest. In 1953, no one was talking or really aware of these beings, so I was curious and amazed. We had eye contact, and I could tell he was very intelligent. And the sighting was about a minute long before he disappeared in plain sight. I remember having a feeling of disappointment because he slipped away before I could figure out what he was. I climbed down the bank and went over to where he had stood and actually looked for footprints because I wanted to follow him into the woods, but there were none. At dinner that night, I shared my experience with the family, and my father knew what I saw and told me he had experiences with them in Wisconsin where he was raised. Wow. No one ridiculed the subject then because it didn't have a tinfoil hat on it yet. Since that day, I have had other encounters. They started back up when I moved to the mountains in Trinity County, California. I've been here for 20 years now and have sightings on my property when I'm driving along the country roads. These encounters are random, and can happen in the day or at night. Sometimes they evaporate into thin air, and other times not. How interesting is that? I've interacted with them on 2 occasions, and that was on a paranormal level. But for the most part, I just leave them alone. I tell them I'm not out raising hell in your forest, so don't raise it with me in or out of my home. My Native American friends have warned me about letting them in my house. Well, I have news for them. Sabe comes and goes where he pleases. They give off a strong, sweaty straw smell, like a horse after it works up a sweat. The smell sometimes is in my garage or other rooms of my house. I don't have horses. I think it's like you and others say, it is their way of letting you know they are there for a visit. It's good to hear you say that you just tell them you're hunting and feed your family, and how that works for you and many others. By listening to the members of the round table and yourself, I'm learning how to stay safe by learning their behavioral patterns. It was interesting that you shared with us about predators not warning you before they attack, but Sabe will let you know. I've not had experiences with aggression or predatory behavior from Sabe so far. I'm 79 now and understand when some of our members say, I feel safe when they're around. So do I, but I know things can change. That's life. If they ever do get aggressive, I would sell my property and move elsewhere. Someone asked me if I had to disclose their behavior in the paperwork. Someone asked me if I had to disclose their behavior in the paperwork if I should sell. Not yet. Just know I would not hang around to find out why they are pissed off. Their size is so big, and I always find it very intimidating. When they come on my property, it is through a portal, which is between my walnut and cherry tree. I throw a brush on it so I don't forget and walk through that area. I found out the portal moves as well. I had someone come out with electronic equipment, and they said that they thought the reason for all the activity is due to an aquifer that runs through my property. I also have lots of orbs and ghosts. Like you say, it's an interesting journey we are on. Steve, thanks so much for all your time and our giving to this topic. You're the only one out there that is honest and to the point. Thanks to all the members of the round table for the comfort in knowing I am not alone. Luckily, if I have two friends that have encounters, luckily I have two friends that have encounters as well, and we share each other up. P.S. I agree with you. Political views as well. I'm conservative Republican. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It amazes me that the people that are in power have so much fear. I often wonder if the people that run all the countries have a false sense about their importance, and that makes them feel powerful when they really are insecure and frightened and have to keep the game going to keep themselves pumped up. What a vicious and stressful way to live. And they can't see through their delusion. Fools. See, I can ramble too. Thanks, Steve. You have a long trip planned now, and I hope it is productive, enjoyable, and safe. Judy Benjamin. Judy, thank you for that share. Sorry if I was a little awkward reading it. It's quite the painting. I'll put that on the video for sure. Pretty crazy looking, isn't it? Lots of people have seen something like that staring at them. Lots of people haven't, but want to, and I don't know why they want that. I don't know why people want that. I've actually known of some elderly native elders in Squamish, in British Columbia, who claim to know where there is a portal above the Squamish Valley, actually. That kind of rung me up. You reminded me of that fact that I heard earlier when you mentioned that. It'd be pretty amazing to know where one of those portals were, right? And obviously to avoid at all costs. Man, I'm tired, you guys. I'm not so perky right now. I'm starting to melt now that I've been sitting down. First time I sat down since 7 o'clock this morning, I think, or something. All right, this is titled A Bigfoot Family. About 15 years ago, I was a volunteer firefighter for a small department. We were a rural area with hills and valleys, but only 30 minutes or so from Louisville, Kentucky. We got a call that an off-road vehicle caused a field to start to burn. It had been dry that year, and we knew that it was going to be a long day. Our southern border of our district met the border of Fort Knox Army Base. We contacted them that had jumped to their side. After giving permission to cross, another firefighter and I, in an old Ford truck we used as a field unit, was traveling down a 2-track 50 feet south of the fence. We stopped to get bearings on the fire when we kept hearing grunts and growls in the distance in front of us. So we slowly continued on. We came around a bend. There in the middle of the track was something that stood upwards of 8 to 9 feet. Looked at us, and then looked north towards the fire, and then waved at the bushes. Then another came out that was a little smaller and stood next to him. Looked at us, then stretched her arm forward, and 2 small ones, about 4 to 5 feet tall, ran out, and they all darted south. I got out, looked in that direction, heard a gargle-like sound. I looked at my partner, and we both said to each other, "That never happened." And that's the end of the email. Wow. But it did happen. There's nothing you can do about it, is there? And you probably never, ever, ever stop thinking about it ever for the rest of your life. All right? It's just how it goes. Thanks for sending that in, man. I'll bet they got a lot of sightings on that Armed Forces property. Paradise Valley, Arizona, 1960s. I've been watching your videos. Guess it's time to share my family stories. We had a visitor on the roof of our home back in '63 or '64, and I was 8 or 9 years old. Being the youngest in a family of 5 children, I always was first in bed at night. We lived in what is now considered North Scottsdale, Arizona. Back then, the roads to our house were all dirt, and everyone out there had an average about 3 to 5 acres. We had 4 horses and several husky dogs and 1 house cat. It happened about 11 p.m. at night. I heard something drop on a roof above my parents' bedroom. We had 2 large 40-foot eucalyptus trees on the wall next to my parents' bedroom. I listened and thought maybe a limb broke as we were having a typical monsoon dust storm. After a few moments, I heard 2 distinct footsteps on the roof, heavy and loud as our roof had a rock finish, 2-inch white quartz of some kind. Very noisy stuff when walked on. I froze and could hardly breathe. I knew something was on our roof. We had mountain lions and bobcats, but this was walking on 2 legs, as just then I heard 4 more footsteps, heavy ones, and headed towards my bedroom, which shares a wall with my parents' room. I freaked out, ran down the hallway through the house to the other end, where my family room was, and my mother, 2 brothers, and my sister were catching the Steve Allen show. I told them someone was on the roof. I was scared and crying. They did not believe me and said I was dreaming. I would not stop insisting that someone was on a roof at the other end of the house. These are big ranch-style homes. It's a long way to the opposite end. They did not hear what I heard. My mother told them to walk once around the house and check on the horses. The horses were freaking out, running from one end of the crowd to the other, panicked. They did not usually panic from a dust storm. I heard one brother say to the other one, "Let's tell Ruthie a bobcat was on the roof, but is gone now." And they didn't see anything. I told them I heard what they said, and I know something is on the roof. They convinced me they must have scared it off as they could see nothing. I was not very popular for interrupting the Steve Allen show. All alone, I went back to bed, turning on all the lights as I went down the hallway. No sooner I put my head on the pillow when I heard this scraping above my bedroom window. It was above me now, and I flew out of bed and ran back to the family room crying, "It's on the roof." My mother told my brothers to go check out the roof above my bedroom. They did not see anything. My mother, myself, and my sister stood waiting in the foyer at the front door. We heard loud scraping movement on the roof by the fireplace/chimney. Then we heard heavy footsteps on the roof coming towards the front door where we stood. My sister freaked out and ran off to lock all the entry doors, which were 4 Arcadia doors. As she ran off to do that, my brother Clyde came busting in the front door saying, "It has Henry." He slammed the door shut behind him. Then Harry busted in trying to catch his breath. He was really shook up and was trying to keep it together. Clyde said, "What was it? What happened?" Was this big, hairy, black creature was hiding behind the chimney, and Clyde saw it. He backed up a few feet to get a better look. Just then it stood up and started toward Clyde, who was a few feet from the front door. Front porch lights and 1 flashlight is all the light he had. Clyde yelled at Henry to look out. It came towards Clyde, and he ran into the house and shut the door. Henry was outside alone. The creature jumped off the roof and headed towards Henry, who was standing about 15 feet away. It landed close to Henry. Henry said his first thought was, "I'm dead," but this thing communicated with him. It gave Henry the thought that he would not harm him. It came towards Henry and placed its hand on Henry's shoulder, looked him straight in the eyes, turned, and jumped over a 6-foot corral fence like it was only 2 feet high. We called the sheriff's office. The sergeant was our godparent. He drove out to us immediately. There were no missing apes or gorillas from the zoo 40 miles away. After several hours of conversation, we all went to bed. Harry is 6 foot tall, and this thing was a good foot or 2 taller than him. There's a few other odd things that happened over the next few months. One night, my sister and I were asleep, and I felt something heavy on me. Hard to explain this, as I was unable to move or cry out to my sister in the bed next to me. Nothing was there, but I felt the presence. I finally moved my foot and the spell was broken. My sister had the same experience, only then she saw a light going around in our room. I had my head covered with sheets so I could not see anything, and always hoped nothing could see me. The next few days, and another weird thing happened. Henry and his high school friend both saw a bright light over what we call mesquite forest near our house. They were in his car coming home. They were curious, so they turned down another road to get a better look. This craft had a searchlight of some sort. No sound came from the craft, and the car stalled. Oh, yikes. These boys were scared. The light was searching for something, it seemed. The craft disappeared in a blink of an eye, and the car started on its own. They drove home fast. These guys were 17 and 18 years old. Came into the house all excited. They both sat down and drew the same shaped craft. Henry saw yellow, red, and blue lights, and his buddy argued that there were only yellowish lights. It was not until months later we realized his buddy was colorblind. Of course, it was a cigar-shaped craft. Were these all related somehow? We believe the craft was looking for its lost creature. Years later, I learned from some locals at Cave Creek, Arizona, that a family of these big creatures lived in old gold mines in the mountains not too far from our place. And that's another story for another time. Thanks for reading. Let me know you got this email. Years later, the Texas Institute of Parapsychology wanted to hypnotize Henry to see what he could remember about his encounter, and he never took them up. Ruthie, thanks for that email. Yeah, the UFO thing and the bright lights and the Sasquatch experiences definitely go hand in hand without a doubt. It's been shared from people all over the planet probably thousands of times now, right? But it's funny, Sarah and I were just talking the other day about seeing, after watching Stephen Greer, I don't know, did you watch that show? And we were talking about people seeing UFOs, and it's like, well, what do you do afterwards? It's kind of like seeing a Sasquatch. It's like, well, who do you tell? And even though you do tell somebody, big deal, right? It's not what's going to come from you telling somebody. But we saw that very bright light on the other side of the valley, about 3/4 way up the mountain in the timber. And it moved a bit. And I watched for a bit. First I said to Sarah, I go, is that a new light? Have we seen that? Is that some street light over the bank or something? Because there is a road through the trees a little lower. We both watched it, and then it started to move. And then it really started to move. Then it came back again, and moved again through trees, and then disappeared. And then about half an hour later, a helicopter was going back and forth in the valley about 4 or 5 times in the dark. And I don't think I said anything here about it, but whatever, it is what it is. It's another bright light in the sky. And Sarah said yesterday, she goes, yeah, when do helicopters fly around at nighttime? I'm like, good point. But that's all I know about that. I can add to that with my own experiences with bright lights. I think that's one of the first ones I've seen, and it was from here. Thanks for that share. I'm glad nobody took your brother. That would have sucked. I'm going to get one more going. I think I'm too tired for this today, you guys. I'm tired. I keep waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know why. 3 in the morning, I wake up. It drives me freaking nuts. Now, speaking my truth. Good evening, my name is Vanessa Charles. Share my name, I don't live in fear. I'm a 33-year-old First Nation woman from Lake Simcoe, Ontario, Canada. For people who care and want to know, my full background from what I know is Chippewa First Nation, biological father, Ontario, Canada, Frisian, Russian/Jew, grandfather, Holland-Rotterdam, Scottish grandmother, so the Heinz 57 is what my grandfather called me. I just have to say, Miigwech, Denkje, merci beaucoup, thank you. I really don't know where to start. I'd love to sit down personally, one-on-one with our hairy friends and you too, as I feel some experiences are scary and some just straight family friendly. But in the scary situations, how would one feel if someone entered your space without consent? I would be throwing shit too, man. No one, and I mean no one, likes when someone F's with their comms/space/home. I try to talk about it, but I try to talk about it, but I only have a few left. My spouse, I don't fully believe he believes me. Others recognize shit but don't acknowledge it, and others just choose ignorance, which pisses me off the most. Ignorance is not bliss. It's just refusing to see the truth that's right in front of oneself. So please, if you have any extra time, I'd love a real friend. Maybe it's with Sarah and her goats and your help to help me share some more stories. As long as I've been able to remember, I've had energy from another place. I just feel so alone in this shit world, and I feel like I'm going legit crazy. So please, let's talk. Van or Ness are my nickname handles. My real name is Vanessa Charles. Cheers and thank you. P.S. I've been waiting for a safe place forever where I can fully talk and be heard without judgment and without a doctor's note if you catch my drift. Thank you so much, Steve. P.S.S. I also got my outdoors card so I can legally hunt and gather within traditional meanings. All right. Thanks, Vanessa. Listen up. If you can, throw down an experience that you've had. I'm not sure what you're getting at, but if you've had an experience that you think, or you have knowledge that you think sharing will help the people, then maybe take a stab at throwing us an email, okay? And write it out and throw it down, and I'll read it out as best as I can. I'll share it with all the people. Right now, I am just not in the position to be cracking open the phone and setting up the computer to be live on the internet, or however you want to do it, right? I try to knock out an hour of my time a day or every couple days before I go in and get as many people heard as I can. I whip in, throw the computer, eat dinner, load it up, and tend to what other things I got to tend to. So time's maybe later on, but right now time is just not going to happen. Thanks for that email. I'm going to share one more, guys, a short one. Then I'm going in. No title. Greetings, Steve. Hope this finds you well and your home is safe and sound. I've been watching your channel for a while and I thoroughly enjoy your platform and no BS attitude. I caught your upload on Sunday, November 28th, 2021. I was pleasantly surprised to hear an encounter from my hometown. I know the gentleman who wrote in personally. He was a classmate of mine from grade 8 to 12, though we never really hung out. I would give him the benefit of the doubt if he told me his story. I was that kid, grown up, who was the new kid in town, didn't fit in at first, but I have hiked those coulees every chance I got for about 10 years. I mean, out at dawn, home by supper, and back out till dark. I've never seen or had any experiences with the Sabe, like most of the people who share at their own table. But I can not deny that there were times something was off and I'd take a different deer trail. I'm currently living in northeast Alberta and have a few stories to share from some of the First Nations people I work with if you'd like to hear them. Sent from Mike C. I'm like, Mike, you have to ask? You don't have to ask. I want to hear them, especially if it's from First Nations people. That piques my interest even more, it seems. I want to hear, I want to know, I want to hear it all. So yeah, Mike, you got, even if they're secondhand from friends of yours, get it to me. Especially if it's going to help somebody here, all right? So I can share it here with the people and get some puzzle pieces in place. But anyway, that's it. That's all she wrote. I gotta go in. I'm soaked right through, filthy, and I'm done like dinner. Tomorrow's a new day. Hopefully I don't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning tonight. Keep them coming in. Share my story at howtohunt.com and it will get got to. See you tomorrow.